Okay, hello and welcome everyone to Engineers Ireland's webinar on energy engineering. My name is Michael Gallagher, I'll be your host today. And before I hand it over to the star of the show, just some reminders about the offerings that are available for students and graduates from Engineers Ireland. So today we're going to be talking about starting your career in energy engineering. And what our graduates should remember, that if you are watching back this webinar, that you can claim this as an RCPD. Just log into your membership profile and you can log it on the My CPD tab. It's really important that you do this because you need to keep a record of at least 35 hours continuous professional development every year of your career. For students who are joining in today, just a big reminder that you have free membership there ready to go. So yeah, definitely apply for your free membership if you haven't already, or else you can apply for graduate membership as well on your graduate dashboard. If you do apply for the graduate membership, a reminder that you can save €700 during the first 4 years of your career. It's a great offer. If you want to learn more, just apply on your dashboard or email us on membership@Engineers Ireland. Without further ado, I'm going to start handing over to our speaker. Aoife, if you want to come on camera. Aoife Bourke is an energy engineer at EM3 and an NUIG graduate, and I think that she has a fantastic presentation ready for us this evening. And yeah, without further ado, Aoife, I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to share your screen.
Okay, hi. So thanks a million, Michael, for the introduction, and thanks for having me this evening as well. So as Michael said there, my name is Aoife Bourke and I'm an energy engineer, and I'm currently working for EM3, who are a company based in Cork in Ireland. So I'm just going to give you a quick introduction to myself. As you mentioned there, I did a Bachelor of Energy Systems Engineering and graduated from that in 2019. Energy engineering really appealed to me because it's multidisciplinary. I liked aspects of mechanical, civil and electrical, and it's great. We got to mix that all together as part of the course. And also in my job as well, it's a very much multidisciplinary job. So that's what I really enjoy about it. During my time in college, I did 9 months placement in Medtronic as a facilities engineer, energy engineering intern. So this is also a career path you can go down after energy engineering, or indeed any other type of engineering. I really enjoyed my time there. I got to really know how a factory or a big industrial facility manages their energy, how they make sure that their energy supply is constant, and how they make sure that their energy doesn't affect anything got to do with their product. I really enjoyed my time there. Then after graduation in 2019, I started my career here in EM3, and I've been here since. So I have a load of slides here about my time in EM3, so I'll talk through that as we're going. Just a few touch on it there. And then currently I'm also doing a level 8 course in GMIT. It's called Climate Resilience for Business, and I'm doing that through Springboard, which is an absolutely fantastic resource to have there. I'm getting a level 8 course. It's a year-long through Springboard. It's really cheap. It's a really good course as well. I'm learning a lot and really enjoying it. So if you are working, it's definitely something I'd recommend. It's a lot cheaper than going traditional master's route. There are level 9s there as well, but I like the level course more, so that's why I went that way. Okay, so moving on to who EM3 are. This is just a quick introduction to what we do. Now, obviously, there's so many routes you can go down after graduating from energy engineering, but I can only talk about my experience, so I'm just going to give you a brief intro to what we do. So energy audits is one of the core parts of our business. Here we would go to a client site, could be anywhere in the world, and look at how they're using their energy and how they can more efficiently use it. So for example, we find on a lot of sites they might be using steam boilers to produce and supply heated water at 90 degrees, whereas a low pressure hot water boiler could deliver that for a lot less gas, more efficient. So that gives you an example of what we might identify when we're doing an audit for a site. Then as the projects are identified on that site, we then can take a project from concept to commissioning. So the projects team on site here, they have a lot of mechanical engineering graduates. So 2 people who graduated with me in mechanical are working in the project and design team. So it's definitely not just for an energy engineer graduate. You can definitely join mechanical, civil, electrical. But here they take the project from concept to commissioning, as I said. any project energy related. You may be installing a steam boiler, installing a CHP, installing a heat pump, X, Y, and Z. So that's a really interesting aspect of the business as well. Energy management is another thing we do, and it's something that's becoming more and more applicable to sites as they try and bring down their carbon. We take in data from lots of industrial energy users, analyze their data and see where they can start making improvements, cut their costs, cut their energy, and cut their CO2. So we may notice 1 week that their compressed air has jumped up a lot, and they can go around and find that they've got a compressed air leak, and that might save them €10,000 over the year if it's a significant leak. So that's the sort of opportunities we'll identify through energy management. And then renewables as well, similar to the projects and design. If a client side is looking to install renewables such as solar PV, maybe wind, or even anaerobic digestion, we can bring that project from concept all the way through to delivery. So that's also a really interesting part of the business. We tender out for solar and wind and everything. It's a third party, so we don't have any preferences. We're not tied to any site, so we always look to get the client the best value there. Okay, so just to further reiterate that you definitely don't have to come from an energy engineering background to work here. This is a breakdown of now this is a bit old, but there's a few more people working here since, but you can see that there is mechanical, energy, chemical and process engineers, electrical, data science, civil and structural engineers working here, building service, sorry. Others degrees qualified, and then these are some of the qualifications of people here. So again, having a master's isn't absolutely necessary. It definitely is good for your career, but as you can see, the majority of us working here don't have a master's. A lot are studying through work as well, but you definitely don't have to have one to start your career in a company like EM3. So EM3 are always open to recruitment for both graduate engineers and indeed engineers with experience. So if you would be interested in a career with EM3, you can always send a CV to careers@em3.ie, and we'd love to hear from you. This is a slide just to give you an idea of who we work with. So we work with people all over, all different industries, which is really interesting. Obviously, no job is the same. If you're working in dairy, the dairy site one day processing milk, and then the next day you're working with the site who produces pharmaceuticals. It's really ranging. The way they use their energy is really different, and obviously that keeps the job really interesting. And as well, you can see here we work with a lot of the industry leaders across all the different divisions. So again, very interesting. So this is interesting here. This is where do we work. As you can see here, this map is probably 2 years old. We've got a lot more sites on the map since then. But before COVID, our engineers got to travel to China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Colombia, all these lovely exotic places to do energy audits or projects. Obviously, since COVID, that stopped a lot. And what we've actually had to start to do is do energy audits virtually. What we'll do is we'll send augmented reality glasses over to, we'll say, China, for example. The engineer there in China will wear the glasses and walk around the site, and we ask them questions as they're going around. So it's definitely not the same as being on site, and we're all very eager to start traveling and get seeing things in person again. But it just shows you how far a career in energy engineering could take you post-COVID, hopefully. Moving on from there, just a few ideas, a few points of what I actually do in my job. Now, this definitely doesn't cover it all, like you can touch on anything any day, but a few interesting things I work on. So the first one there is climate action strategy development. So there's a lot of, I'm sure as everyone knows, there's a lot of increasing pressure on companies from both consumers, from their corporate and the government to start reducing their carbon or indeed head towards carbon neutrality. So a lot of my work recently has been looking at climate action strategy development for these companies. So what we'll look at there is how they're using their energy, how can they make it carbon neutral. So that might be electrifying heat. If you're buying green electricity, maybe replacing boilers with heat pumps, or it may be procuring green gas, or maybe installing anaerobic digestion, or buying bio-LPG or something like that. So what we do here is take into account how much the site are currently spending. Some sites we work with could be emitting upwards of 20 to 30,000 tonnes of CO2 per annum. So it's a lot of CO2 to mitigate against. And it's definitely a costly strategy. So what we have to do here is weigh up all the different technologies they could possibly implement, how much it's going to cost, and how much their overall running costs are going to be if they were to implement the projects we suggest. So that's really interesting, and I really enjoy working in that part of the business. Another thing I work with a lot is ISO 50001. If you're in the energy industry, you've probably heard of this before. It's the energy management standard, globally recognized. We do a lot of work to help our clients either implement an ISO 50001 system or maintain it, so we can help them through their audits. We help them to ensure that they're continually improving in energy performance. And again, yeah, that's a really interesting part of the work. I touched on energy auditing earlier. So as I mentioned, I've worked on audits sites. There was one in Pakistan, one in America, one in Germany. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would have got to go to all these places, but unfortunately I couldn't. But definitely will be exciting when we get to go and work on these places. But even doing it remotely, it's really interesting to work with loads of international companies, because for instance, in Pakistan, the site we were working with there, they don't have a stable connection to the grid, so they can't always get electricity supplied, and they can't always have gas. So that means that they have electricity generators and they have like bulk gas storage. So it's really cool to get to see how energy systems work in other countries and what sort of issues they have, because Ireland obviously is so tiny in the grand scale of things. So I really enjoy working internationally on those. Energy management I spoke about earlier. So I get to client face, talk to sites, work through projects with them, help them through their issues. So if they have a compressed air leak, or if their chiller load has gone up all of a sudden for no reason, we work with the clients to identify what the issue is and then give them advice on how they may fix that issue. So that's what energy management really entails for me. Then some other things I would work on, so energy project calculations, and project feasibility studies. So if a client comes to us and say, look, we want to install 2 heat pumps in these buildings, how will it look? How much will it cost us? Will it work? Do you have the space for it? Is it going to save you much carbon? X, Y, and Z. So that's obviously can be really challenging. They're real detailed engineering calculations. If you're telling a site that they're going to save €1 million, you better be sure that they will, So that can be very detailed, but again, I definitely enjoy it, and no 2 calculations are the same, so it definitely keeps you on your toes. Then data analysis, I think that's in every walk or every type of engineering, you're going to become very good at data analysis. So I do a lot of that, and I've definitely become better at it since I left college, for sure. And then capacity studies is another thing I work on. So say, for instance, a client might come to us and say, we want to install this big building extension. Before working in EM3, I just thought, look, you could hook up to your HVAC, you could hook up to the chilled water, hook up to the low pressure water links, and that'd be it. And you'd be able to supply the building with energy. But when it comes down to it, they only have a certain amount of capacity that may only suit the one building they have. So you have to suggest, oh, you might need another boiler, or you have enough capacity here. So again, that can get really detailed, but I do enjoy working on it. So then I just have a few notes here about how it's changed, how my work life has changed since COVID happened. So initially when I began, I was working 5 days a week in the office. You would maybe be going to sites maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks for either to scope out a project or to meet clients about energy management. Obviously COVID hit, we were working from home 5 days a week, no one was going to any site. It was definitely a tough time, but Now, since sites are started opening, we're essential workers because sites need their energy systems to work. So that's been great to get out and see people again. And we're working in the office 2 to 3 days a week, which is nice. And you know what, working from home 2 to 3 days is nice as well, because you have a bit more time in the evenings or the mornings maybe without making the commute. So it has worked out for the best, I think. And yeah, there has been a lot less site visits due to COVID. But again, the world's opening up again, so we'll get out and get seeing places again, which is nice. So I have a few examples of the sort of work we may deliver then, just to give you an idea. So this is for a pharmaceutical client. They want to be net carbon negative by 2024. These are a relatively smaller site. They emit 4,500 tons of CO2 per year. But again, it's no easy feat to get them to carbon neutral. And you'll see here, we had some projects outlined for them. So some of them are called out here. So we recommended that they'd install a heat pump and heat recovery optimization. Then they'd install some dehumidification of their product process stream, install some other smaller projects. And then their plans are to transition to biofuels and upgrade their steam and low pressure hot water system to go along with those biofuels. And then this graph shows you how it will look for that site, and it definitely is a really once you get to the end of the project, it's nice to know it's good job satisfaction, because you know that by 2025, the site will have saved 4,500 tons of CO2 emissions, which I think is a really good perk of working in energy systems engineering, or energy engineering, should I say. Every day you're contributing, or you're helping to reduce climate change, and you're helping to reduce carbon emissions. So that's something I really like about my job. And then earlier I spoke about projects, so this just gives you an idea of some projects that we install or that you could be working on as an energy engineer. So this project here, they installed heat recovery and changed their fuel. It was a food industry. I think this project was in Cork. So as you can see there, it saved them 8.58 gigawatt hours of energy. So we often find once you go into a site, they're using, and they haven't had any sort of energy consultancy, they're using energy crazily to us, and energy saving can be really easily ticked off when you first start working with the site. Another project here, we installed cogeneration CHP, and that saved the site €2 million per annum, again, which is a huge saving. This is a dairy site, and we installed a 1,400 kilowatt hour heat pump. So this has saved them a significant amount of CO2 and definitely set them on the right track towards carbon neutrality. And this project here is about installing a gold standard steam boiler house, which just means we installed the most highly efficient boiler with all the new technologies integrated into the site, and it's operating at a really, really high efficiency. So that's the end of the presentation I have for you today, but I suppose just a few tips if you are starting a job in the energy sector. Just never be afraid to ask questions. You are still learning a lot when you come out of college. Can't be expected to know everything, so everyone's there to help. And definitely Google is your best friend. I've learned a lot through Google since I since I started my career here. So those would be my tips. Lovely. Thanks.
Aoife, that was a phenomenal presentation, and just as we kind of come to the end of the recorded portion of the evening, yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you from Engineers Ireland. Something that really stuck with me from your presentation was mentioning how, you know, every day you're working towards like making the world a better place, and I definitely think that's right. Like, you're helping us hit our sustainable development goals with everything that you're doing in terms of environment. So look, if people want to see the other recordings, you can check out the links that will be appearing around me right now. But otherwise, just a massive thank you to Aoife, and I'll stop the recording.